A man spends 11 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. The victim identified him. She looked him in the eye in court and said she was certain. She was wrong. This isn't rare. It's closer to routine. You probably believe your memory works like a recording. Something happens, your brain files it away, and later you can rewind and replay it. That belief feels obvious. It is also almost completely false. Memory doesn't record, it reconstructs. Every single time you remember something, your brain isn't pulling up a stored file. It's rebuilding the moment from fragments, and it fills in the gaps with whatever makes the story feel complete. You don't notice this happening. That's what makes it dangerous. Think about the last time you told a story about something that happened to you years ago. Did you remember the exact words people said? The exact colors in the room? Or did your brain smooth over the missing pieces with details that felt right? Now imagine that same fragile process under police lights, hours after witnessing something terrifying. In the 1970s, a psychologist named Elizabeth Loftus ran an experiment that changed how courts think about memory forever. She showed participants a film of a car accident. Afterward, she asked some of them how fast the cars were going when they smashed into each other. She asked others how fast the cars were going when they hit each other. Same footage. One word changed. The participants who heard smashed estimated significantly higher speeds. And a week later, when asked whether they remembered seeing broken glass at the scene, even though there was none, the smashed group was far more likely to falsely recall it. One word. A memory that didn't exist. Loftus called this the misinformation effect, and it revealed something unsettling. A memory can be edited after the fact, and the person doing the remembering has no idea it happened. Now picture a real crime scene. A witness is frightened. Adrenaline is flooding their system. A detective trying to help asks a question. Did you see the man with the knife run toward the alley? The witness didn't mention a knife. They didn't mention an alley. But the question just planted both, and the witness's brain may quietly absorb them into the memory, no differently than that one loaded word about the accident. This isn't about bad detectives or lying witnesses. It's about how memory actually functions, which almost nobody, including many witnesses and investigators, fully understands. Here's where it gets more specific and more troubling. A researcher named Gary Wells spent decades studying police lineups. The moment when a witness is shown a group of faces and asked to pick out the perpetrator. What he found should worry anyone who assumes a confident witness is a reliable one. Wells discovered that the format of a lineup changes the outcome dramatically. In a traditional simultaneous lineup, where all faces appear at once, witnesses tend to compare the faces to each other and choose whoever looks most similar to their memory, relative to the others. That sounds reasonable until you realize the actual perpetrator might not even be in the lineup at all. In that case, the witness still often picks someone, just the closest match among strangers. Wells proposed something called a sequential lineup instead, showing faces one at a time, asking, "Is this the person? Yes or no," before moving to the next. This forces an absolute judgment rather than a relative one. Fewer false identifications resulted. The core insight. The way a question gets asked can shape the memory retrieved, sometimes as much as the memory itself. And here's the part that should genuinely trouble you. Wells also found that witness confidence, the thing juries trust most, is barely correlated with accuracy at the moment of the crime. But confidence grows over time, especially after a witness is told, even casually, "Good, that's who we thought it was too." That single sentence can transform a shaky, uncertain identification into an unshakable, courtroom-ready memory. Not because the witness remembered better, because their confidence was fed. This single mechanism, confirming feedback after an identification, has contributed to a staggering number of wrongful convictions. According to reviews of DNA exoneration cases, mistaken eyewitness identification appears in the majority of them. Not lying witnesses, not malicious ones, ordinary people doing their honest best, whose memories were shaped by the very process meant to extract the truth. Consider what this means about the moment of the crime itself. Researchers studying what's called weapon focus have found that when a threat, like a gun or a knife, is present, witnesses tend to stare at the weapon. Their attention narrows sharply onto the most dangerous object in the room. Meanwhile, the face of the person holding it, the detail that matters most for identification, often receives almost no visual attention at all. Your brain, under threat, isn't optimizing for justice. It's optimizing for survival. It watches the thing most likely to kill you. That is exactly the wrong priority for building a courtroom case, and exactly the right priority for staying alive 5 seconds longer. There's also the question of who is doing the remembering. A researcher named Christian Meissner has studied how the interview itself, not just the lineup, shapes what a witness reports. Leading questions, repeated questioning, and even subtle tone shifts from an interviewer can quietly nudge a witness's account, especially across multiple interviews spread over days or weeks. Each retelling isn't a replay of the original memory. It's a new reconstruction, built partly from the original event and partly from everything that's happened since, including every question asked in between. This explains something that puzzles a lot of people watching true crime cases unfold. Why does a witness's story sometimes change slightly with each new interview? It feels suspicious. It often isn't. It's simply what memory does every time it's accessed, whether the person realizes it or not. None of this means eyewitnesses are useless. It means they are far more fragile than the criminal justice system has historically treated them. A witness staring across a courtroom, pointing with total conviction, is not lying. They are reporting with complete sincerity a memory that may have been shaped without their knowledge by a single loaded word, a subtle nod of confirmation, or the simple structure of how a lineup was presented. Step back and look at what this really reveals. Your memory isn't a flaw in an otherwise perfect system. It's doing exactly what it evolved to do, reconstructing a usable story quickly, filling gaps efficiently, and updating itself with new information as it arrives. That system works remarkably well for everyday life. It becomes a liability the moment a person's entire future depends on its precision. This is why modern police departments increasingly use double-blind lineups, where the officer administering the lineup doesn't know who the actual suspect is, removing any chance of an unconscious nod or a confirming tone of voice. It's why some jurisdictions now require lineups to be recorded from the very first question, so confident statements can be traced back to the original, unrehearsed moment rather than a version reinforced by later feedback. Think back to that man who spent 11 years in prison. The victim wasn't lying when she pointed at him in court. She believed it completely. Her memory, shaped over months of questioning, feedback, and repetition, had quietly become something different from what actually happened, and neither she nor anyone in that courtroom could tell the difference from the inside. That's the part worth sitting with. You cannot feel the difference between an accurate memory and a confidently reconstructed one. There is no internal warning light. Certainty feels identical either way. So the next time you watch a witness on a true crime documentary point across the room with total conviction, remember what that certainty actually is. Not proof, not even necessarily truth. Just a story your brain has told itself so many times that it finally stopped sounding like a guess.